Welcome to the Upside Podcast, powered by Upside Global and hosted by Julian Blinn, founder and CEO of Upside Global. The Upside Podcast is listened to weekly by over 6,000 sports and tech executives from all sports leagues and teams in the United States and around the world. Julian has been developing technologies for professional sports teams for over 10 years and has worked for major tech companies along with sports tech startups. In each episode, Julian interviews global leaders in sports to share knowledge on emerging technology in the sports industry and how these technologies can help improve the performance of individuals and organizations, both on and off the playing field. And now here's your host, Julian Blinn.
So today we have the honor of interviewing Kevin Kidd, the motorsports executive in NASCAR. So Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Julian. Appreciate it. Glad to be on and excited for it.
It's great to be on our show. So Kevin, first of all, could you start by telling us about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So just short wind up here on my story. I have been involved in motorsports in one form or another, pretty much all my life, going all the way back to my early childhood. And as I was going through childhood, knew pretty early on that motorsports would be my career path, and specifically NASCAR. That's where my interest was at, and sort of charted my path that way, and ended up getting a mechanical engineering degree from Virginia Tech. And straight out of college, was able to land with a NASCAR Cup Series team. Jasper Motorsports was my first organization that I worked for as a engineer there. And throughout my time in the sports, been about 25 years now. I've kind of gone, all the way from that entry level position that I started with, all the way up to high level positions within the organization, leading all of the competition and technical efforts for most recently RFK Racing. And at the end of my time at RFK Racing, I was leading the software development and analytics groups, where we were kind of charting a new path down the analytics stream in NASCAR, which has been rapidly evolving, I would say, over the last 5 years. And we were able to build something out from scratch and had a good time doing that.
That's great. Now, what would you say to anyone who doesn't know anything about NASCAR and what's tech being used? Like, what do you think are the best practices you've seen applying data and analytics to drive innovation in NASCAR, both on the track and in team operations?
Yeah, I mean, best practices, we could spend the entire podcast probably talking about best practices, but at a high level, I would say, first and foremost, you need to understand what problems you're trying to solve. I feel like it always starts with a question. I've had a point of telling people who have worked for me or worked with me during the years, in our world, racing's pretty easy if you understand the problem that you're actually trying to solve. It's that question of what is the problem is really the hardest thing to solve. So it starts with the question, what are we trying to solve for? And then, from there, these days in NASCAR, we get a ton of data that comes at us. There's no shortage of data to look at. And so what I would suggest anybody doing is to really make sure that the data that you're working with is clean. There's nothing like getting yourself screwed up if you look at data that has issues in it that maybe you haven't figured out or imperceptible. And as a strategy for a company, developing clean data and governing that data and publishing that data to the users in a clean format is always a good best practice to have.
That's great. Now, when we spoke the other day, I asked her, about, what are the different groups, right, in NASCAR? And I think you mentioned there's the drivers, there's the pit crew, and then you got the engineers, right? Mm-hmm. So can you go back and discuss that and maybe explain to me, like, some of the technology that you guys have been using for both the drivers, the pit crew, and then the engineers.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are three of the main groups. I would add on a fourth group, which would be like the mechanics and the fabricators who actually build the cars. Those are your four main groups of people that work within a race team. Outside of any business interest, there's a whole separate group there that we won't really touch on today. But
Yeah.
with drivers and pit crews, they're actually pretty similar. Human performance, your typical athletic type things are of main interest there. With the drivers, it's a lot about endurance conditioning, and so a lot of the technology that we use there is really about understanding their ability to operate over a 4 hour or a 5 hour period, in high heat and sort of extraneous circumstances. The pit crews are a little bit different. They're almost like a sprint. Those guys do their job in about 8 or 9 seconds, and you have to really focus on a completely different thing with them, where a lot of the strength and conditioning and the things that we are doing with those guys really focus on their explosive techniques and the ability to make quick cuts and pivots and things of that nature. So it's a whole different kind of way of looking at it, but by and large, for drivers and pit crew, it is a lot of human performance and mental performance as well. A lot of focus and just the ability to make quick decisions, things like that are really important for both sides of the groups there. For our engineers, it's a little bit less athletic, and it's a whole lot more analytic. And so for those guys, a lot of the focus is on reducing cognitive load. Throughout a race weekend, and particularly during the race itself, there's a lot of information, a lot of data coming at our engineers who are making the decisions on how to execute a race. And anything we can do from an analytics perspective to reduce the cognitive load, to be able to help them make some of those decisions without having to go mine for data or really do a whole lot of lift of work. Those are things that are wins in their world. And then just in general, providing them, the right data at the right time to be able to make those decisions. Those are all critical things for them. For our mechanics and fabricators, we'll just touch on them real quick. A lot of the data and the things that we focus on with them is really about operational workflow, making sure, again, that they have the right information at the right time to be able to build cars the way the engineers call them out, have best practices on how to build those cars, so on and so forth. It's quite a vast amount of difference in the groups that we have to cover in terms of the data that they need and how we supply that. Each one of those groups could be a full-time job in itself, but we have to cater to all four and make sure that they're all running at 100% all the time.
That's great. Now, I remember one day reading that, for example, in Formula One, they capture about 12 billion data points per race across all the teams, right? Do you have a sense of, how many data points are being captured in NASCAR race across all the teams?
It's probably similar or more, but I would say it's very different in the types of data that we collect. So in NASCAR, what is really unique is that each team in the sport, in a race, we get data about our own cars, but it's a limited amount of data. So if you compared the data that came off of one car compared to a Formula One car, you would say, boy, this is not apples and apples. in NASCAR, we get just a limited amount of channels to analyze, and that's really by governance from NASCAR themselves. They're pretty. I mean, the rules are skewed this way to make sure that we're not out there just collecting all kinds of data about the cars. Now, having said that, one car worth of data compared to one car in F1, in NASCAR, we might be getting limited data. However, and this is what makes it really fun, in NASCAR, I get that limited amount of data across every car in the field. And in F1, you don't have that. In F1, you get your car's worth of data. So the fact that we can not only analyze our data but also analyze the data of our competitors
Interesting.
is really cool. That
Yeah.
gives us a lot of opportunity to understand our performance relative to our competitors, and be able to see vulnerabilities in our competitors. There's just all kinds of really neat things that can come from being able to have that much data across the entire race.
Yeah, I mean, and I could never see that across Formula One teams. I mean, it's so
No.
competitive,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's not going to happen in F1.
Yeah, for sure. Now, looking at technology and performance, right? So, how has technology, whether it's sensors to measure, I don't know, sweat loss, or AI, or simulations, so how has technology most directly impacted driver and car performance during your time in NASCAR?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that in my entire time in NASCAR that has just been a constant evolution is simulation. Simulation is the lifeblood of any motorsports organization, whether you're Formula One or NASCAR, or any top level professional motorsports organization. Um, we inherently don't get a lot of practice or test time on the racetrack. Even if you're in a series that gives what would be regarded as plenty of track time, it's still not enough. It's never enough. There's quite literally several million combinations of setup parameters that you could build your car towards. So it's impossible to do any kind of real time live on track testing for all those combinations. So we rely on simulation to help understand the performance of our vehicles and how to quote unquote build the fastest race car. And so from where my career started to where we're at today, I mean, as you can imagine, over a 25-year period, it's come leaps and bounds in a positive direction. The things we're doing today with simulation, I never would have dreamed, that we would have been doing 20 years ago. And quite literally, those millions of combinations of parameters, we may not be running through every single one of them prior to a race weekend, but we're running through several hundreds of thousands of those combinations each race weekend in preparation for an event. And then we're optimizing those results, and we're kind of narrowing down for what the best setup strategy is for a given weekend. And so, the ability to really hone in on a setup and be close to it, it's better than ever. It's not bulletproof. Simulation's not bulletproof. We've got a long way to go before it is. There's still, some black boxes out there where we lack enough data to be able to build, models as nice as we would like. And those are still the areas of development. Those are the areas of opportunity that we continue to work in to try to improve our game in the simulation area. So that part, is just a huge part of what we do.
Now, what would you say what makes the best NASCAR team today? Is it a combination of the best drivers, the best engineers, the best, team have the ability to leverage data and make strategic decisions in real time? And what would you say?
I mean, I'm a firm believer that, any performance culture really centers around people, process, and resources. And when you look at NASCAR, we're no different. So if you think about the people side of this, it is very much, who are the best drivers, who are the most talented engineers, who are the best assembly and fabricating, mechanics. All these people things matter, and they matter a lot in NASCAR. But you can take the best people in the world, and if you don't have good process or good resources, um, they're only going to be so good. And so, really focusing on, as an organization, focusing on your resources and processes to go along with having the best people. That's the name of the game. And, you'll find that if you can throw more resources and have good processes, typically that helps you land the better people and build the best organization. So, in general, that's how I view it, and I think that holds the test of time, um, and it's something that you can build an organization off of.
That makes sense. Now, we talked about data, right, and the need to make real-time decision, right? So NASCAR is, as you said, it's a sport. It's a sport where split-second decisions matter, right? So, how did your team leverage real-time data during races to influence strategy? Any example that you could share?
Yeah. So, real-time data is that's a very motorsports thing. We get real-time data, in leaps and bounds coming at us, and so back to thinking about it like, from the race engineer perspective, um, you know, the ability to take that real-time data and do something with it. There's a magic there, and to be able to do that and not, as I mentioned earlier, load up the engineer too much from a cognitive standpoint, to be able to allow that engineer to still have bandwidth to make a decision even after consuming the data. So a lot of effort has been put into that to make that part as good as we possibly can. Um, an example of maybe some of the things we look at, real-time fuel consumption. Most people don't realize that a NASCAR vehicle does not have a fuel gauge in it. The
Mm,
drivers do not know when they're going to run out of gas.
really?
It's up. Yeah, that's correct.
Why is that? Why is that?
It's by rule, and it's kind of an old school NASCAR thing that's been around since the start of the sport. It's there's plenty of ways to calculate fuel consumption without the fuel gauge, so it doesn't necessarily, in the end, become necessary. So, we use a lot of that real-time data coming in to help us make real-time calculations about our fuel consumption on a lap-by-lap basis,
Yeah.
and we're able to project out and understand with very, very, fine, clear-cut accuracy, to the specific spot almost of where we're going to run out of gas on the racetrack. And that kind of information matters a lot. There's a lot of situations that we get into where we're trying to push a fuel window, or we're running to the end of the race trying to make sure we have enough gas to take the checkered flag. And having that kind of data at our fingertips, and then being able to process that data and really hone in on how to deliver it to the race teams to make it actionable. Those are some pretty important steps of that process as well. And I'm giving you an easy one. There's a whole lot more complex things that we look at, but
Mm.
the fuel thing is a pretty big part of what we do.
It's kind of amazing, right? I never realized, like, it's crazy that a driver doesn't know when he's going to run out of gas, but I guess you just let him know, right? Basically,
Yeah.
like, now other sports, right, are increasingly adopting NASCAR style data-driven approaches, right? So, what lessons from motorsports do you think could benefit elite sports, whether it's football, basketball, or even soccer?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of the good things about NASCAR is that, and really all of motorsports, is that I do feel like in terms of sport, we're probably leading the charge on data consumption. And it's funny. I watched the NFL, and they're using Hawkeye this year
Yep.
for first down markers, and it's getting a whole bunch of press every game I've watched so far, and that's great. I mean, I think it's fantastic technology, and I'm glad the NFL has adopted it. But using video capture and video machine learning models to judge position is something that we've been doing in professional motorsports for probably 10 years. It's been around a long time now, and so I think that is really one of the cool things about motorsports is we are leading that charge. And so as I think the other sports, as they're trying to bring on technology to help the game, my advice, in particularly, based on my experience with motorsports, my advice is to simply look at the real-time things that you can do where it makes sense, and bring those things online. But also have good measure about it. Not every idea is going to be a good one, and so rushing into new technology just for the sake of doing it is probably not the best move for a sport. I look to the NFL and what they're doing with Hawkeye. That's something that has long been needed in the sport, and I applaud them for heading that direction. They did a good job of being measured and calculated and bringing on technology at the right time. So I think for sports, there's no shortage of things you can do, but make sure that the things you will do actually bring value to the game.
Yep, that makes sense. Now, looking ahead, right, there's a lot of technology advancements around AI, sensors to measure hydration, lactate, cortisol. I mean, you've got cameras now. You can track if the players getting fatigued. I mean, so where do you see the biggest opportunities for data and technology to push the boundaries of performance and safety in motorsports?
Yeah. So I think a few things that we are thinking about without getting too deep into it, because I don't want to reveal all our cards, but
Sure.
a lot of the things center around how to harness this ever developing world of AI and ML that we're walking in. Again, I've mentioned a couple of times, but a race engineer, a crew chief sitting on top of the pit box making decisions, their bandwidth gets consumed pretty much right from the green flag. And anything we can do to help automate the decision-making process reliably, to be able to serve up guidance in a way that takes cognitive load off of our engineers and crew chiefs, and really frees them up for the hard things. There's just a lot of simple things that consume their bandwidth right now, that if we can free them up from those decisions, it'll give them more bandwidth to consume on the hard decisions that maybe AI or ML aren't appropriately built for at this time. So that's a lot of the things we're looking at. And then from a human performance standpoint, like with the drivers and the pit crews, athletic performance never stops. The pursuit of increasing performance never stops. And so there are things coming online like hydration and different movement technologies, how to understand choreography and how to understand actual player movement from a biomechanical sense. All of these things will ultimately just push the edge or the frontier out further in our ability to produce stronger, faster, better athletes to perform those jobs. And we'll try to take a pit stop that we're doing in the 8-second range or high 7-second range, and we'll just keep trying to reduce that to where it's suddenly 6 seconds, and then a few years later suddenly 5 seconds, and you just try to continue to push that out. That's what we call free speed, is when you can find a faster technique for pit stop. That's a big differentiator. You might fight for an entire green flag stint to get 1 second of advantage, and then if you can manufacture 1 second on pit road in the blink of an eye, that's a huge advantage. So we're always pushing the frontier there, and the same thing really goes for our drivers. How can we how can we do things to better understand their endurance and conditioning over the course of a race? Collect data that allows us to then help their training from between races and help their recovery between races, so that we're putting the best version of themselves out on the racetrack every time they strap in.
Yep, no, that makes sense. But that's exciting, right? There's a lot of new stuff coming in, and like you said, this is gonna keep improving and getting better, right? So, look, I want to thank you for your time today, and it was a great conversation. So, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Julian. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. To access past episodes and other research, articles, and analysis of sports technology, please visit our website, theupside.us. Subscribe to the Upside newsletter and receive full access to our sports tech business letter and website. Royalty-free music is provided by ibaudio.com. The Upside podcast provides timely insights and interviews with global leaders in sports technology. Until next time, keep looking to the upside.